Style podcast. Today I'm with Sam Pardee, who once had a peak ELO of 2,302, which would have put him at number two worldwide right now. Two Pro Tour top eights, 14 Grand Prix top eights, including two wins and a 16-0 at Grand Prix Detroit. Mox competitor, Worlds competitor, involved in the banning of many cards. He's a host of his own podcast, Allied Strategies, and occasionally makes some modern videos on YouTube.
Hello.
Hi, Sam. How are you dealing with COVID-19?
I've been fine. Like, it sucks not going outside, but I live with Matt, Nass, and BK, and then Josh McClain is also just living with us right now. So I feel like there's lots of people here. Like, we hang out, we do fun stuff. It's not that different than my life would be normally, except for the not going outside part and everything feeling awful.
Yeah,
Um,
I was thinking it would have been a good time to be in a cult, but at least you have like five people.
yeah, we've got five people here, and we play board games or watch movies or whatever. So that's not too bad. Having all the Magic tournaments canceled has been pretty sad.
Yeah, the last few have been fun.
Yeah, I've enjoyed them pretty well.
In my research on you, you've said that you started playing Magic very young, like 4 or 5 years old. Is that true?
Yeah, I don't remember it that well. I don't know that I actually played so much as you know put cards in front of me and action when I was a kid. I probably learned to play, but by the time I was like 6, but when I was around 4, I just was super into the cards and enjoyed looking at them, and that's kind of how I learned to read, was because I wanted to play with him. I taught myself to read so that I could do that. And now he doesn't really play anymore, but I still do, obviously.
Did you play continuously since then?
Definitely not.
Okay.
I stopped playing. I played, when I was a little kid, and then played some with my friends, and then they kind of fell off of it, so I kind of fell off of it, and then I picked it up again in college. I came home actually from college, and my friends at home were just playing Magic. They thought it would be fun, so then I got more into it, and then I got very into it from there.
Yeah, I see that on ELO Project, your first tournament was in 2009 at Grand Prix LA. Was that when you
Yeah,
were in college?
I was in college from 2007 to 2011, and that was I drove myself there by myself for that Grand Prix. I didn't really know anyone. Uh, and yeah, it was a good time. I think I played like a couple trials and didn't do that well, and then didn't do that well in the Grand Prix either.
Yeah, it can be tough at first going alone. And that's
Yeah,
pretty far. I
it
remember.
was. Yeah, I had no buys also.
I remember Sam said one time he was playing it at his college in like a club room or something. Somebody opened the door and said, "What game are you guys playing?" You guys said Magic, and he said, "Oh, I don't want to play that, nerds." Is that what
Yeah.
happened?
Yes, that is definitely what happened. Um, there's a lot of things like that happen when you play in college. Like you'll be playing at the dining hall or whatever, and somebody will come over and you're playing like real standard, competitive standard decks or modern or whatever, and they just want to talk to you about like their casual Merfolk deck or something like that they've played in the past.
Yeah, I play green.
Exactly. Yeah, or they ask you what your favorite color is. Which is not like a ridiculous question, but it's not one that I identify with particularly well.
So there were other competitive players around.
Yeah, I mean, I would say not as competitive as I ended up being, but there were a handful of people that I played with, like Boland and Tim Frolig, who we used to go to events together a lot, and that was kind of how I met a lot of those people. Was I My first PTQ, I just messaged this guy who was like, I think he was an admin in the like Santa Cruz Magic the Gathering Facebook group, and was just like, hey, can I have a ride to this PTQ in San Jose? And he said yes, and then that was that.
Yeah, good idea for anyone out there. Just message a stranger and ask for a ride.
Yeah,
I've done that as well, and it worked out for me too. How long did it
yeah.
take for you to do well at a tournament?
So I mean I qualified for my first. I think I first started playing again, I guess like 2008 2009 era, and then I played my first pro tour in 2011. So I won a PTQ, and I actually skipped my college graduation to play in that pro tour. Um, and that was a really fun experience for me. Like it was in Japan. It was the first, I'd never been to Japan before. That was awesome. Um,
You're
I
representing
ended up,
Japan right now.
yeah, I guess I am. I started off really well, as you can probably see, and then lost my last like 6 rounds or something to not cash the PT. And that was like pretty tough for me. I was pretty unhappy about that, because the way it was structured back then, also it was you would play constructed, then you would draft, then you would draft, then you would play constructed. So I lost, I think, the last 5 rounds of constructed and the last round of draft to really, underscore how poorly that went for me. So yeah, that was a tough time, but otherwise, I enjoyed getting to go to Japan, and it was a really cool experience, and it definitely left me hungry to qualify for more PTs.
Yeah, you probably had the feeling of excitement and thinking you might top eight or win the tournament at that. Not even
Absolutely,
close.
yeah. Yeah, I was like going into day 2, I was 6-2, I think.
And then you won two in a row.
Yeah, and then I won the first 2 matches of the next day, and I was feeling like, wow, yeah, I can really do this. Like I didn't, I didn't have that. All my main goal, I think, at the time was requalifying, which I think was top 50. So I was strung along for even quite a while after I fell out of contention. And then yeah, just didn't even end up cashing.
Where are you playing? When did you start playing Magic Online?
I think a little before my first PT, so probably like 2009 or so. Before that, I played a little bit on Magic Workstation, which is a very bad program.
Yeah, a lot of people maybe they've gotten into Magic recently with Magic Arena, which is a very advanced program. And Magic Workstation is kind of like Paint, and then you just tell your opponent what you're doing. And
Yeah, and sometimes they don't like necessarily agree with you about what the rules are or what's going on in the game. Like one of my favorite all-time interactions on there was I was trying to explain to my opponent why something didn't work or whatever, and I used the phrase state-based effects, and they said, "Well, maybe in your state, but not in mine."
okay, um, yeah, Sam is a pretty legendary Moto player, Smdster. Do you? I don't remember, but during the mocks they probably showed that you had tens of thousands of games played or something.
It was somewhere in the like 31,000 matches range, if I remember. I was like fifth in that. I was behind like Jabberwocky, and Budakov and a few other people. I don't remember exactly who. But yeah, I had a pretty healthy number of games played.
Then shortly after your first pro tour, probably when we met and started going to PTQs and stuff. When was your second pro tour?
So my second pro tour was Seattle, Return to Ravnica, and I actually you and I drove down to an LA PTQ together. You lost in the top 4, and then I managed to luckily win the whole thing. So I got to play in that. And that was a good time. I got talked out of playing Birthing Pod by Matt Nass, which was like pretty devastating for me. I just played Jund, but I didn't know about Deathrite Shaman, which was legal at the time, and that didn't go very well for me. I went 3-5, and I think I went 3-2 in constructed, 2-1 in limited, or 1-2 in limited, so not enough to make day 2. And yeah, I got pretty smashed there. I spent a while getting smashed at PTs, I would say.
Yeah, but not playing Birthing Pod there sort of maybe it motivated you to play Birthing Pod for a while. You're one of the first players to really play it a lot. You did well. Grand Prix Chicago, Grand Prix Toronto, Grand Prix Portland.
Yeah, that was a good time. I beat you even in Grand Prix Chicago before you won the whole thing, and then I just happened to lose all the rest of my rounds from there,
Yeah,
unfortunately. I thought I was going to make top 8 of that Grand Prix, I remember, and then I made a huge mistake playing for it. Um, that still haunts me to this day. But what can you do?
yeah, I'm haunted by a lot of things as well. But, um, around Grand Prix Toronto, I think that was the end of the year in 2012. I've never seen anyone so confident as Sam. He said, "We're gonna fly to another country just to play this Grand Prix, and I'm gonna win."
Well, we actually flew to New York, if you remember,
Yeah,
and then drove to Toronto, which was awful. It was really bad.
yeah, that seems like a lot of work.
Yeah, I would never do that these days. And like we barely even got you into the country. It was a whole thing.
Yeah, I was a bit tired at the border. They asked me the standard questions. They're like, "Oh, do you have any family in Canada?" I said, "No." "Oh, actually, I forgot about my brother. He lives in Toronto."
Yeah.
But they did let us in.
They did let us in, and the Grand Prix went well for me. I remember I was extremely confident in that Grand Prix, and I think I started 9-0. I guess I just won all the way until it didn't matter. Like until I was locked for top 8, I just won every round, and I felt pretty good about that.
Unfortunately, you lost to Lotus Cobra Jund,
I
which
did.
was never seen before or after. But
Yeah, Willie Adel managed to slay me there.
why do you think no one else is playing Birthing Pod?
I think because it looked bad. It looked like a collection of bad creatures, even though it was actually a collection of great creatures. People were a little like just down on the whole idea, but I think it was actually just really good from the get go.
Yeah, that was your style for a while. You like Pod, then it got banned. Then you did well with another sort of similar deck, which was the Mardu Aristocrats deck that Tom Martell won a Pro Tour with.
Yeah,
And
I like that deck a lot too. I definitely like sacrificing creatures for value. That's definitely a thing that I'm into.
like you said, you did well at a few Pro Tours, but you did get kind of beat down for a while. And then you were gold for several years. Then you made your first top 8 in Sydney 2014.
No, I think like 2016 maybe.
Okay. That was just a normal deck. What do you remember what you liked most about that deck?
Well, it was kind of a normal deck. Like it was all like just a green black mid range deck, but we had Emrakul and a lot of other people in the tournament were not playing with Emrakul, which definitely felt like a pretty huge edge for me. Um, my favorite part of that deck I think was just having Traverse for Nissa be a thing you could do. I felt like that was super strong. Like being able to traverse for a planeswalker. So I really liked the whole traverse package in that deck basically. That was the stuff that was super into.
Okay, maybe I got a little bit ahead of myself and skipped too many years. So you did well at GP Toronto, but at this point we were still both just we weren't really on the Pro Tour very much.
I mean, I didn't miss a pro tour from Toronto like from that point. Seattle after Seattle I have not missed a pro tour yet.
That's a pretty good streak. Is that like 30 Pro Tours?
I don't know. I guess Toronto. So let's see. That was 2012. Return to Ravnica was fall of 2012, and it's now uh spring of 2020, and there were like 3 or 4 a year. So it's yeah, it's like a little under 30, I would guess, because there were three for a couple of those years.
So what was the first Pro Tour team that you were on?
Uh-oh, I think you've frozen, Jacob. Oh, that's annoying.
So you have played every Pro Tour for 6 years, which is pretty impressive. Or maybe more, 8 years.
Yeah, I think 8 years.
But at the beginning, you were just testing with your friends, which some of them turned out to be really good players. But when was your first Pro Tour on a organized team?
So the first Pro Tour on an organized team that we ended up playing, you and I actually joined the team at the same time, was Team Face to Face for Tour Theros, which is in Dublin.
Are you forgetting?
We had a pretty sick testing house for that. Actually, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we lived.
We came close to playing a great deck, and instead played a red green creature deck. Oh no, you're frozen again. Yeah, it was like a manor. I don't. It was. I think it was called White Rock or something. Does that sound right?
I don't recall.
Yeah, I don't remember exactly either, but I was super into it. Yeah, we had a mono blue devotion deck that we ended up not playing because we're big dumb.
Yeah, I feel bad about that. I think I was saying like I don't want to play Welkin Turn and Constructed, but turns out for years just bad creatures were good.
Yeah, and I remember being scared off in particular of Supreme Verdict. Like the deck was very weak to Supreme Verdict, and we didn't have a good like. I don't think there was a great sideboard plan against it, and we certainly didn't have one. Um, and then like it only ended up being a small percentage of the field, and I think it would have been obviously it ended up winning the tournament. It would have been a pretty good deck for us to have played, but you know, there we are.
But I think you're forgetting about one of the original powerhouse teams, Team Panic.
Oh yeah, that's true. Team Panic we tested for what was that Grand Pro Tour Gate Crash
Yeah,
that was in Montreal.
yeah.
I did forget about one of the OG powerhouse teams.
We had like 12 people, a lot of them really good players, but we did not work well as a team.
No, we did not. Yeah, we had uh, Matt Nass, Calcano, Matthias Hunt, a bunch of well-known players from there.
Yeah, but maybe I skipped ahead again. What What do you think when you first got back into Magic and you played a lot in college when there's so much to do? What do you think appealed to you about Magic?
I mostly think I just like competitive events. I like tournaments. I like, competing. I've basically always played something competitive. Like before I got back into Magic, I was playing Warcraft 3. Although I wasn't as competitive at that as I was at Magic, but I played a lot of it anyway. So I pretty much always do something like that, and this was just another thing for me that I ended up doing for even longer than basically anything else I've ever done. So that was cool, and I was pretty into it.
Yeah, me too. I think we're similar in that way. And joining face to face was definitely good for both of us. It started out badly with that green red aggro, and I played Esper Control. But then our very next Pro Tour, we both did well, and back to your trusty birthing pod.
Yeah, that and also like we just met a lot of people that ended up being great friends for a long time from there, which was really cool. Like John Stern and Alex Hayne, Josh McClain, like just a bunch of people that I still talk to pretty frequently and still hang out with a lot. Like John Stern doesn't even play Magic anymore, but we still went on like a ski trip together this year, and that was really fun.
Yeah, you went on a trip with John just now, and Josh McClain is just at your house,
Yeah,
potentially for a
exactly.
while.
Yeah, for the foreseeable future at this point, I think.
You said
Yeah, so then Pro Tour Born of the Gods, we both played Birthing Pod, and you ended up losing the finals, and I lost two win and ins, which at the time like looking back, I really wish I had won one of those two matches, but at the time it was hard for me to feel too bad about it because it was like the first time I'd really done well at a PT. I was just blown away by that.
Yeah, I think based on someone's perspective changes how they feel about the results and their happiness. Like if you look at it like, oh, I could have lost even more and missed cash like I had previously, or if you look at it like, oh, I could have made top eight or I could have won.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, it was the first time I'd ever played a Pro Tour win and in, so like that is a pretty exciting match to play and felt pretty different. So yeah, like I said, it was hard for me to feel too horrible about the whole experience.
Yeah, and I think you made top 25, maybe top 16.
No, I did not top 16. I remember that. Because I remember back then also you got paid out based on your finish, like for pro points, and not based on your record. So I didn't earn like the extra pro points that you got. Like I got 10 pro points, not 15, which is what you got for top 16. Um, so I remember being a little bummed out about that, but I still ended up making gold that year, so it was hard to feel too bad about it.
First of many golds.
Yep.
Face to face had a pretty good run. We went on for a while up until that point where you got second at no, you got top four at the Pro Tour, and then we went on to do even better a few Pro Tours later. You got second, and Paulo got first.
Yeah. Yeah, we had quite a run there for a while.
And
It was a lot of fun.
you played black green again, but much different.
Well, it still had Grimflare and Traverse. That was the important part. And it just had a different Nissa. It still had Nissa.
And again, it had walking ballista, small creatures. Your
Yeah,
swords
that
had.
one was definitely more of an attacking deck. Like you were definitely trying to be more proactive than the black green Emrakul deck where you didn't care that much about killing your opponent, but it was still like I would say at its heart it was still a tireless tracker deck. That was still sort of the main goal that you were like the main card that you were abusing or using the best.
Yeah, Tyler's tracker was great. So you had after a bunch of golds, you had two platinum years and two world's competitors years, but you had pretty brutal world's experiences, right?
The first time was fine. It was just sort of a normal tournament. I don't remember exactly what my record was. I think I probably went like 6-8 or 5-7 or 5-9, something like that. I don't know if you do you know that.
No, I don't.
Okay, yeah, I did. Not good but not horrible was kind of how I felt about it. And it's Worlds is a tough tournament. It's hard to consistently do well there for sure. So I didn't feel too bad about that one. And then I guess I went 5-9 looking at it now. Um, I did get tricked really, really badly by Yuya. I remember that was one of the times I felt the most outclassed in terms of like play skill. We had known deck lists, and I knew he had three copies of I think it was a +3/+0 in first strike trick. I don't remember exactly, but I knew he had three copies of a certain trick, and he just kept bluffing me with it, and then eventually like played the last card in his hand, and obviously had never played that trick. So, and I felt like, yeah, I really got fooled. I tried to play around this card, and became clear that I could not have beaten it because I played around it and lost anyway. So it was pretty tough. Then the next Worlds, I actually set a MTG ELO project record that I think will hold for a long time.
Yeah, you were probably like number one or at least like top three elo going into that.
Yeah, I believe I have the record like locked up for most ELO lost in a single event. I went 2-12 in that tournament, and there are not a lot of tournaments where you're allowed to go 2-12. Like usually they cut you off after day one if you have too many losses. But here they just let me keep going and going and going, and I didn't win any. I just kept losing and losing and losing.
Yeah, that must have been and
Uh,
fire?
I didn't really feel that bad about it. Part of it was a two deck format. Like everyone in the tournament was either, I guess there were three decks that people played. Everyone in the tournament was either playing mono red, teamer energy, or blue black control, and not very many people were even playing blue black control. And I was playing mono red, and I thought my build was fine, and a lot of things didn't break my way. I didn't draw Hazoret at the right times, or I got Hazoreted in the mirror by their Hazorets or whatever it was. Um, I didn't feel like I was playing super badly or anything, so it was hard for me to feel too terrible about losing a lot. Yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of people have sort of expressed to me that they would feel really defeated and really beat down by that. But I kind of just didn't care that, or I wouldn't say I didn't care. I didn't feel that horrible about the whole thing. I knew that losing was something that could happen going in. Um, and that was what happened.
Yeah, it definitely is something that could happen. Like you said, it won't happen to most people because they'll just drop. But if you were forced to play,
Yeah,
it
well,
would
the
happen all the time.
Worlds is in particular a weird structure where it's you're not really allowed to drop because you can earn pro points for each win you get. So I just never drop. Until the last round, I didn't have much of a reason to drop. There was also a weird thing in that tournament in particular where you earned pro points equal to the number of match wins you got -3. So I believe I'm the only player to have ever earned a negative pro point at an event as well.
That is tough.
Yeah, it's a feat that won't soon be replicated.
Like I said, you made top 8 of 14 Grand Prix, which is really quite a lot. And you're known for the banning of Birthing Pod, Eye of Ugin, Splinter Twin, Mox Opal, KCI. And one thing some people want to know is, do you have a particular approach to tuning decks when there's when you start playing a deck like this? What's on your to-do list?
That gives me an edge. Like, I don't really, I like playing Magic Online for sort of no reason. That doesn't bother me at all. Whereas I think a lot of people don't do that. So by the time tournaments roll around, I feel like I typically actually have like a very strong understanding of what's going on and what what the matchups are about, what cards are important, ways to improve things. So I think that's sort of the main thing I have going for me is that I get a lot of reps in, and I also have a lot of smart people to talk to. That obviously helps.
Yeah, I've noticed that when you're playing a matchup, you often know how the matchup goes, and you might even have like a plan or like a particular play that comes up a lot. And most people don't have that at all. They don't play nearly enough. They just sort of wing it.
Yeah, I think that's definitely like one of the things that I'm best at is just sort of grinding through the games, getting a feeling for what is important and what matters in the games, and then figuring out ways to apply that are relevant.
Yeah, and a lot of top players, maybe surprisingly, it seems like they don't necessarily even love playing Magic, but you certainly do. Like we said, you played 31,000 matches of Moto a few years ago, and for a while you had a cube, but you got rid of the cube, right?
Yeah, I found that just wasn't really playing it that much. It was too frustrating to like constantly be taking cards out of it and then having to put them back, like using cards for constructed events and then having to put them back in. That was kind of annoying. So I eventually kind of just gave up maintaining that. It was too much effort for me.
Do you play just random drafts on Magic Online these days?
I played a lot of Modern Horizons draft when it was around, and before a PT, I usually, do probably like 30 to 50 drafts, I would guess. Um, but usually that kind of satisfies my appetite for drafting a format like the pre PT amount. I do love drafting, but I typically play more constructed. Like I'll just play random leagues of constructed rather than draft more often.
Yeah, I think 30 to 50 is a good number to understand the format. I see some crazy folks out there. You'll see the trophy leaders who have like 100 trophies. And I just
Yeah,
don't.
I never play enough to get to that level.
We've both traveled a lot for Magic. Do you have a favorite place you've been to?
Um, I really like Japan. I've been there twice for Magic tournaments, and it's been awesome both times. I've been really pleased to go there. I don't like that's not a place that I would say I would uh tend to vacation myself. Like I just like the sort of the vibe from being there more than like doing particularly touristy things there. Um, I really liked going to Australia, although the Australia part wasn't actually the part that I liked the most. It was New Zealand, which I went to afterwards. I have family there, and getting to go hang out with them was really fun. And then it wasn't strictly for Magic, but it was because of Magic. I ended up going to Brazil to for Paulo's wedding, and that was also like a completely awesome experience that I felt like I wouldn't have gotten to do if not for Magic. Like I wouldn't have been friends with a person from Brazil if not for that. So that those are probably my top places that I've been. And Europe is fine. You know, we've both been to Europe a bunch of times for PTs, and it's totally okay. But it doesn't. It's not as exciting to me as the non-European foreign destinations.
One of your most controversial tweets was just your disdain for the European water practices, which I also don't like. They just won't give you tap water, and they don't have ice. It's just a humid place.
Yeah, I do not enjoy that part of Europe, but it's otherwise it's fine.
And I've heard good things about New Zealand. It's a very pretty place. I'm sure Brazil was good. Did you guys stay at an all-inclusive sort of hotel?
It wasn't all inclusive, but it was like a resort. Like it didn't, like our meals weren't included or whatever, but it had a pool, a tennis court. It was very fancy. We had a great time hanging out there, and we did some touristy stuff there, and that was really cool. We went to Rio first, which is not where Paulo lives, and then we went to Paulo's hometown after that.
I think you do a good job of having a small amount of touristy stuff at most pro tours, and you introduced me to food tours, which I didn't know anything about, but it's you just pay someone who gives you like a tour of the city, but instead of pointing out landmarks and stuff, they take you to a lot of different food places.
Yeah, I mostly have my mom to thank for that. They've since I've been playing pro tours, they've sort of started traveling to pro tours with me, uh, which is kind of weird because we don't really see each other that much. Like my mom will be in Dublin for a pro tour, and she'll come to Dublin. She won't stay at the same hotel as me. I'll be testing the whole time, and she'll be off doing touristy stuff. Maybe we'll have like a dinner or two together, but my parents have really used it as like a way to travel and pick places for them to go, and that's been really fun too. So that's been like a way and then my mom finds a lot of touristy stuff and tells me what to do, so that's been a good way for me to get to do a little more touristy stuff off of her recommendations.
Other things that you introduced me to, I didn't really eat that many different foods, but just today I had pad see ew, which you used to order all the time.
Oh yeah, we've been jamming a Thai place during the quarantine that has really good pad see ew. It's a very fancy Thai place. They have like Kobe beef and stuff.
Do you have a favorite dish of all foods?
Across all foods, I really like pork buns. I'll go with that. I'll say that's my favorite.
Like a dim sum?
Yeah.
Okay, dim sum is cool. So back to Magic. We left off at PT Kyoto. You did very well, and then there was Worlds where you got kind of beat down. But you still did pretty well overall that year. You probably had like 40 something pro points, right?
Yeah, I think I ended up with like 45 or something when platinum was 52. Um, I had it was actually kind of a disastrous year. I just started off well, I would say. Um, I don't really know, like there wasn't really a change for me or like a change in my approach to the game or anything like that, or changing my prep time, but I definitely did a lot of losing. I think I only did well at the first pro tour of that year. The rest of the pro tours I did pretty poorly, including the team PT. And yeah, I don't really know what to attribute that to. Uh, it was just a down year for me, but yeah, still comfortably made gold, and had like a couple of Grand Prix top eights, a PTX 5. So like it was a fine year, but not great, I would say.
Like you said, losing happens, and there's only 4 PTs a year. I think some people are just really good players, and they're just lucky people. You probably had one of the biggest ELO swings ever. You went from 2300 to 1750.
Yeah, I definitely just did not do a lot of winning that year. Although I did qualify for the mocks, so like I did some winning online, you know. It was just a weird year where things didn't break my way in the high leverage spots, I think.
Yeah, too bad the Mox doesn't really help you get onto the rest of the Pro Tour unless you get exactly first.
Yeah, exactly.
And this was kind of an unfortunate timing. You were like one of the top players at Worlds Platinum 2 years in a row, and then the one year where you start losing a little bit is the year that they decided to start giving out a lot of prizes and make the MPL. Did you feel bad about that?
I didn't mind that much. Like I have a regular job. I'm a game designer for a local game company here called Direwolf Digital. Um, so and like I didn't, I would have been somewhat conflicted about whether or not I would have wanted to quit my job to do the Magic thing. Um, I didn't feel that bad about missing it. I actually felt much worse about missing Rivals the next year.
Yeah, and it's sort of been truncated. You, so past that year, you did really well last year. I think you had 51 mythic points. You had a winning record at every tournament you played across the whole year. I think it was like 12 or 13 tournaments, which is pretty hard. But the invitation criteria this year was sort of not really based on how much you won overall. It's like who did well in this category and this category, and we'll just pick some at random.
Yeah, it was tough. I felt like I had yeah, I felt like I did really well over the whole year. Like was really on my game, you know, had one of my best years in Magic, and like a year that in previous seasons would have qualified me for Worlds and been platinum and all that stuff, and instead I basically felt like I got nothing for it.
Yeah,
Um,
it's pretty tough. Like the Grand Prix didn't help you at all, and then there were tournaments that awarded points that you weren't invited to, so that you didn't even have a chance to compete at.
yeah, and admittedly, I didn't give myself a great chance to play in those. Like I did not play. I basically haven't played Arena that much. It hasn't really hooked me that well. I haven't enjoyed it that much, so I haven't qualified or really even been super competitive to qualify for any of those Arena PTs. So haven't gotten there yet.
What's your number one qualm with Arena?
I think I just don't like playing ladders that much. I find it kind of a shapeless experience. Like when you sit down and play a league, there's this feeling of like we both put up our $5 and we'll see how that goes, and there's some stakes behind it. Even though it doesn't really matter, right? Like the stakes in a Magic Online league are not particularly high. It's $2 a match theoretically, two tickets a match. Um, but it's still enough to get to make me feel both like I'm engaging in my like best effort kind of way, and like my opponent is also probably trying their best to win. Whereas Arena, I feel like I play for a couple hours and then I come back from it and I'm like, yeah, I don't know what my record was. I moved up this amount, but I have no idea what my record was. I don't really care. The investment just isn't there for me.
Yeah, like you said earlier, your main attraction to Magic was the competition, and arenas, the way it's set up, they don't even have tournaments. So,
Yeah, exactly. Like I played in one of the CFB PTQs on Arena and for their like Magic Fest online, and it was fine, but it did not have the same sort of tournament feel to me, and it just wasn't enough to hold my interest because of that.
but other than that, if they had tournaments on Arena, what would you do? You prefer the software of Moto or Arena?
I think I like Magic Online slightly more because I'm very comfortable with it, but it's not a big deal. I don't have a super strong preference either way there. The sort of graphics and visual stuff on Arena does not do much for me. It doesn't add a lot of value. So I don't value that part super high.
And then after that unfortunate year where you did really well, you had 51 mythic points, and I mean, they put people in rivals who had 29 mythic points. But going into this year, you started off really well. You went um, 10, 11, 5 at the first Pro Tour, the first regional Pro
Yeah,
Tour.
it's I mean it's really 11 and 4 because that's when the records that was when like the points locked in because of the weirdness where the last round didn't count for the players tour. Yeah, I started off well. I was excited to, be qualified for the PT final. I thought that was going to be a pretty fun tournament. I guess I probably still am qualified for the PT final sometime in the future whenever that starts back up. But I did feel a little put out at the way that they just decided that this tournament basically didn't count unless you made exactly top four. That was, not my favorite thing. Matt Nass, I think, actually got hurt worse by that than me by quite a bit. I think he was the person who was the single worst off as a result of this decision by Wizards. And I don't know. There's also some extent to which things have felt a little unfair and arbitrary for a while now. So this didn't feel that different. Like it just felt like a little more arbitrary unfairness, which is what I was already used to.
Yeah, that is sort of just how it is. But yeah, you did well, and I found Pioneer to be kind of exciting. It was cool that there was a new format. Did you Were you excited by the announcement of Pioneer?
I think I was not actually that excited by it initially, but it has become the format I play the most, partially because I think I really don't like what modern is looking like right now. I don't really like playing uh Veil of Summer, and I don't really like playing with Mystic Sanctuary, so modern is has been on a bit of a downswing for me, and Pioneer has scratched the same sort of itch that it did originally pretty well. I've been having a great time playing a pretty wide variety of decks. I've most recently been playing Hardened Scales, and that deck's super fun.
Yeah, originally Pioneer was just all creature decks, and it was sort of old standard decks. But then at the very last minute, with the release of the set, they introduced three combo decks all at once.
Yeah, and getting rid of Oko also I think improved the format a lot. I thought it was pretty bad when Oko was around, and any format without Oko is definitely improved in my book.
Are you playing mono green or green black hardened scales?
I've been playing Green Black. I think it's decent. There's probably some room for improvement, but I haven't been working on it like particularly hard. I was playing it up until the Modern Horizons drafts came out, and then I was playing a bunch of those. So that's sort of been my Magic consumption lately.
I did a bunch of the Modern Horizons drafts. I liked mostly. I did well with red black aggro sort of goblins. That was
Yeah, I think that's the best normal deck. I was trying to draft the Sam Black deck. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I don't know if it's storm or is it mill or both.
It's more like five color control with some storm cards in it, and like you try to use splice and storm to go off because you can splice onto your storm cards and then like it copies for all of them.
Yeah, that is pretty nice. Is the best one the golem?
I think actually the draw card one is better just because it's cheaper and because you're usually base blue more often.
Okay.
But yeah, those are the only two. Um, and yeah, that deck was fun to try to learn, but I don't actually think it's like I believe red black is still the best thing you can do.
Does are there any other sets you hope they bring back to draft?
That was my favorite recent set. I really like Rise of the Eldrazi. That's one of my favorite all-time favorite draft sets as well. Uh, yeah, I don't know. No, I don't have any other particular hopes for anything they bring back. I don't really like the cube that much that they do. So I'm probably not gonna partake of whatever cube they have up now. I don't even know if it's modern or anything. I don't know if it's modern or legacy or what, but I'm probably not gonna play those.
Yeah, that's understandable. I think a lot of the main appeal of Cube is just hanging out with people. It's not as competitive as other formats.
Yeah, I really enjoy playing cube with friends. Like Gabby has a cube, and we cube with her somewhat frequently, and that's always a good time. But online cube does not have the same appeal to me.
Back when you had a cube and back when we both kind of drank a lot, you had kind of a epic beating of me and Matt Ness.
Oh yeah, that was great. That was that at the Invitational, I think, in Columbus? It was in Columbus, I
It's
know
in
that.
Columbus for sure.
Yeah, we myself and Michael Boland, who was my roommate. I don't know if it was at the time, but my roommate in college anyway, were pretty hammered and beat a completely sober you and Matt Nass. Or were you completely sober? I think you were.
Yeah, I was. I was.
Yeah. And I remember in particular Matt couldn't figure out if we knew how all of our cards worked because we were quite drunk. And he
Yeah.
was kind of like freaking out. He's like, "Do you guys see all the angles? Do they know what's going on?"
I think it was like a Mishra's Factory and a Changeling. He's like,
Yeah, it was
I don't
Mishra's
know what to
Factory and
do.
Mutavault.
And I think he ended up underestimating the power of your brain.
Oh, it's howling time here.
Oh, is it windy?
No, at 8 p.m. every night in Denver, uh, the people take to the streets and howl.
Excuse me.
It's
Are there
a
gonna be wind or wild animals?
well, the wild animals get in on it too because they hear all the people.
Is this?
There's also fireworks sometimes. Can you hear it?
No, I cannot.
There's a bunch of people howling. Yesterday I went outside and banged a pot with a wooden spoon. It was really fun.
Okay, I can kind of hear it now. Do they stand 6 feet apart?
Yeah, it's just like you go out on your balcony or you go out, you like poke your head out the front door.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like a march. Okay.
No, no, no. It's like BK's doing it right now. He's standing out on the balcony howling.
I guess that's cool.
It's something.
That's not what I would have expected.
Luisa's kid really enjoyed it. She liked you know, sanctioned yelling. She thought was very good.
Okay. Hmm. So, yeah, unfortunately, this year has been cut short, but you are still invited to the next finals. They'll probably be a lot bigger, unfortunately. But
Yeah, I mean, who knows what's going to happen at this point? Like I the main reason I wanted to qualify for the finals was because I wanted to play a high stakes event with like Paulo and Andre and like my international friends again. I assume that'll still happen, and I'm happy about that.
yeah, that'll definitely still happen. Just unsure how long it'll take.
Yeah, and I'm theoretically invited to the next two PTs as well. From like I had 100% of an invite stored up. I don't know. I also don't know how that'll work out, but hopefully I get to still play the next bunch of PTs, and that'll be fun.
And you have your own podcast called Allied Strategies with you, Ben Whites, and Tristan.
Yeah, Tristan is actually more famous for his World of Warcraft podcastings, but he is a Magic player, a Berkeley Magic player, which is where I grew up and where I used to live. So that's how we all know each other, and we've had a good time doing a pretty nonsensical podcast. It's ostensibly about Magic, but like we kind of just make up stuff. Like we had a segment called Guess the Sound recently on our podcast where we
Yeah,
just made sounds with different objects.
maybe we can do a short interlude of guess that sound.
You want to play?
Yeah, let me
I
just
have to
try
turn
to.
off the webcam then.
Okay, we're gonna turn off the webcam for a minute and do guess that sound.
All right, do you want to go first or second?
I'll go second.
Okay. So you make a sound first, or do you want to make a sound first or second?
Uh, I'll make a sound second.
Okay, so I will make a sound to start here, and then you will have to guess what it is. Okay, ready? Here comes my sound. Do you have a guess for what that sound was?
I think it's like a plastic noise maker. It's like squares of plastic being hit against each other.
That's pretty much exactly right. It was a dice cube being shaken.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a bit off.
Well, I mean, it's a bunch of cubes of plastic. Like, that's what the dice are.
Okay, I'm, I'm about to make a noise.
Okay. Well, that definitely sounded like you flipping a coin.
All right, you got it.
Nice. Wow, we did perfect. We both got each other's sounds. That was great.
Do you think you can do a second one?
You mean make another sound?
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You ready?
Yeah. Are you loading a toy gun?
No, that was not what that sound was.
Okay, what was it?
That was the sound of me shuffling cards.
Okay, well, that would have made more sense. Okay, I'll make a noise now.
Is that you stapling something?
No, it's a lighter.
Ah,
All right, 50%.
yep,
Bad.
50-50.
So, how long have you been doing the podcast for? Over a year?
Yes. I don't remember what episode I joined in. I think it was like it was before 150, I think.
Oh, so
And
maybe 2 years?
we're on episode 235 now, and we do it every week.
So
And I
almost
don't
two
think we've
years.
missed any weeks. So yeah, close like 2 or 3 years.
Wow, that's pretty good.
Yeah, not bad.
Do you enjoy doing a podcast?
Yeah, it's fun. I mean, I mostly just like talking to Ben and Tristan about stuff. So it's a fun way to do that, and we happen to record it, and that's fine too.
Do you foresee yourself playing Magic forever?
Um, yeah, I think I imagine that I will probably play limited forever.
Yeah, I think drafting will always be fun. Could still do the cube or flashback drafts, or maybe they'll keep making interesting sets.
Yeah, I imagine they'll keep, making sets that are fun to draft. I don't know if this set will be fun to draft. It looks really weird, but
Are you? We could talk about the new cards for a second. Are any of the
sure.
new cards? The most common thing I've seen online is people think they're too many broken cards. Is that your feeling?
It feels like there's a good amount. The companions feel like a lot of power, and also to me a pretty high burden to, particularly for older formats, to constantly be like checking if your deck could get a companion for free if it's like close. That's kind of the part that I'm most apprehensive about with the companions.
Yeah, it's,
Um,
it's also a bit weird if like it doesn't go with your strategy at all, and you just have a random 5/5 for 5.
Yeah, like Tron picking up a 5/5 for 5 is not very interesting to me and is not something that I think is particularly cool. Whereas like the even and odd ones feel like you actually have to build your deck around it a little bit, and that feels pretty neat to me. Um, so I like those ones. I don't so much like the ones that kind of just happen by accident. Um, I think Wizards really got one over on people with these cycling lands. People seem to think they're really, really strong. I kind of don't.
Yeah, all the cards that have cycling for a single mana are really powerful, but cycling 3 is a lot.
Yeah, cycling 3 is a lot. I don't think you're going to be particularly interested in fetching them up in modern. Obviously, you can't in Pioneer, so that doesn't seem like that big a deal. I mean, they'll be good for standard, certainly. You'll
Yeah,
play them as much as you played the old Tri-lands, but I don't think these are like that much meaningfully better than Frontier Bivouac, for example.
yeah. One thing you could think about is in modern there already was a Abzan one and nobody played it.
Right. Yeah, I mean the Abzan one was worse than this one. Like it basically always came into play tapped and didn't cycle and cost you life sometimes, but I, it wasn't like people just didn't play it. It was like they weren't close to playing it, right?
Yeah, some of the cheap cards have seemed pretty good. Like there was a blue red 1/1 flying haste where instead of prowess, it's whenever you cast a non-creature spell, put a counter on it.
Yeah, that card seems strong to me. The Ozolith is a card that I'm super into. I don't know if it's actually good, but it looks really cool for Hardened Scales type decks.
Yeah, it seems like a good card. I mean, it's hard to know exactly what it does, but it's probably similar to Hardened Scales and Animation Module.
Yeah, exactly. Fire Prophecy also seems incredibly good to me. Have you seen that one?
Yeah, that's a sorcery speed. Incinerate, put a card on the bottom.
It's not a sorcery, it's an instant.
Oh wow, that's really really good because
Yeah.
that's the perfect card for the Pioneer um, Possibility Storm deck.
Possibility Storm or Indomitable Creativity, yeah, whatever you're into there. I mean, there's just not a lot of there's no effects in Pioneer really right now that are like if you draw your combo piece that you need to keep in your deck, they give you like a way to put them back, and this one does.
All right, that'll probably be a great card in Pioneer and Standard, and definitely Draft.
Yeah, that card looks crazy good to me.
And then a card they just spoiled today is blue green for a 2/2. Whenever you tap a non land for mana, make an extra source.
Oh yeah, finally a way to make Arkham's Astrolabe good.
Yeah, they probably thought it was like a really good card to use with mana creatures, but the most broken thing is you just use it with Astrolabe, Chromatic Star, Chromatic Sphere, and it sounds kind of like it's gonna do horrible things.
Yeah, I also expect. Have you seen the Boros Companion?
Yeah, it makes activate abilities cost 2 less, so it works well with a lot of artifacts.
Yeah, I think that one's going to be kind of great in Legacy.
I'm not that worried about that card in Legacy because there's so many cards that win the game for 3 or 4 mana in Legacy. But
Yeah, but you don't get to start with them in your hand.
I didn't consider that, but it's
Like this card is always in your hand every
thank
game.
you. It's kind of like I forget their names, but there was a lot of people who cheated in Magic who tended to play combo decks where you start
Yeah,
with certain cards in your hand.
you also can play it in your deck. Like you can do both. It can just be in both places.
Really, you can play
Yep.
like 3 in 1.
Yep.
Can you
Well,
have?
of some of them you're not allowed to because like the
Okay.
black white one breaks its own restriction, but this one does not.
Are you allowed to have multiple companions in your sideboard and pick which one?
As long as you meet the requirements, yes, you can. Like it's a pretty big cost, right, to build your deck in such a way that both of them would work,
Yeah.
but you theoretically can.
Okay.
I also think Fiend Artisan might be kind of good.
I don't know what that is.
It's the green black hybrid 1/1 that gets +1/+1 for each creature in your graveyard. And you can spend X and a green black hybrid to tap it, sack another creature to search your library for a creature with converted mana cost X and put it into play.
All right, so it's a pretty
Yeah, it's like a halfway a birthing pod, halfway a Knight of the Reliquary.
Yeah, I saw that was pre-ordering as one of the most expensive cards in the set. So maybe that'll be your new Grim Flare.
Yeah, it doesn't look quite as good as Grimflayer to me, but it does look pretty good.
Yeah, it's tough these days to play creatures that don't have enter the battlefield effects or haste, even when they cost a small amount of mana.
It really is.
Wizards is
And tough when you're not ramping.
yeah, Wizards is kind of printed cards like Teferi, Brazen Borrower, Bone Crusher. So I'm sure like a lot of people looking forward to the end of quarantine and back to paper tournaments.
Yeah, I definitely am. That's been one of the main things I've missed in quarantine is just like I would still go to Grand Prix even though they don't really have a purpose anymore. I just like battling, so I've missed that I don't get to do that at all. Um, and I had like a couple trips home planned that I was hoping to go on that I now didn't get to, so I'm looking forward to seeing my parents again, things like that.
All right. Do you have off the top of your head one story about Magic tournament that was kind of crazy or ridiculous?
I mean, I guess off the top of my head, Grand Prix Detroit was pretty outrageous. The one that you and I won with Matt Nass.
Oh,
Um,
I forgot about that.
yeah, I we lost the very first round and we're feeling like kind of defeated.
Did
And
you
then
finish your match?
yes, I did. I won my match. You and Matt both lost. We thought we gave you the best deck on day one too.
Yeah, I remember that. I was thinking it was good, but sometimes there's a metagame in Team Grand Prix, and I just played against people with sweepers all day.
Well, and I kind of remember you had like some really big creatures. You were like a green. I think you were green white. Is that right?
Yeah, green white with a lot of 5 and 7 drops.
Yeah, you were green white with like a lot of really big creatures and a lot of like bomby big creatures, but you didn't have any ways to like actually win combats. So I kind of remember just like you would get your like there was a guy who turned into a 12/12 once he hit them, I think, a colossus of some kind from Magic Origins,
Yeah,
and it just like kept getting chump blocked every turn, and then eventually you would like die to a flyer or whatever because you were a green white deck with no removal. I kind of remember a lot of stuff like that happening.
yeah.
Uh, s-
From my
yeah, and the way
experience, the tournament was pretty fun. I just lost and felt like you guys were always going to win. But what was your experience like?
oh, it was also yeah, it was really fun. I enjoyed that a lot. Um, that part was really fun, and eventually, like my favorite moment of that tournament was when we were in the top four. We drafted against I think it was Shahar, Costa, and Brock. Is that right?
Yep,
See
that's
their
correct.
third. And and after the draft, you were playing against I think you were playing against Costa,
Yeah, it
and
was.
he had been passing to you in the draft, and your deck, or you had been passing to him in the draft, and you were both blue white, and your deck was worse than his.
Yeah, I can make excuses for sealed, but not really for draft. That was my own dang fault.
Yeah, that was very funny. And we won the tournament, so it was hard to feel too bad about it.
Yeah, I remember at one point in the finals, you were playing against Ifra in the deciding match, and he was mana screwed, discarding to hand size, and you had 3 Guardians of Meletus in play,
Yeah,
just
I had a
praying to
deck that
draw
was
something.
using yeah, I had a deck that was using Thopter Spy Network, so like I was playing all the artifacts that I had available to me, and I ended up winning with is it Sigil of Distinction? What's the it give all it like basically gave all your creatures exalted.
Yeah, it turns out that your Guardians did something at the end of the game. So
Yeah, so the Guardians still were able to contribute on offense, which was great.
yeah, that was good time. So now people can find you on your podcast. Do you have any interest in still making magic videos or articles?
Not really. I made videos for a while, even after I started having a full-time job, but then I just got too busy. There was a point at which I just got too busy and didn't really have time to do that anymore, and I haven't really. I've missed it a little bit, but I haven't really been back to it.
Yeah, you probably have some of the most YouTube Magic videos of anyone, but you haven't for a while. People could still find those if they wanted to.
Yeah, if you want to watch some typically mostly modern, mostly modern before Modern Horizon, so it's not going to really look like modern nowadays, but there's some fun stuff there.
Yeah, it seemed like you would just go through the deck list and find the weirdest deck and play it.
That was often a strategy I employed, yes.
All right. Do you have any closing words?
No, I think we've about covered it.
All right. You can find Sam at Smdster, where his occupation is winning Magic and business has been booming for the last 10 years, and his podcast, Allied Strategies. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.